There was a time the most important thing in the world was coal. Then you turn the clock forward, and the most important thing is oil and gas. But nowadays, the most important thing is not something that comes from the earth. It's something that humans invented. A thing that could be found in every type of industry. Any electronics you have is filled with these stuff. Nowadays, every type of industry has to have electronics to keep it going. This is what we're talking about, microchips. The base element that's used in these microchips is silicon. Silicon is named in different types of stuff, like a type of glue, but we're talking about the element silicon, and it's plentiful in Earth's crust. Even though silicon is very common on Earth, but creating microchips is actually a very difficult task. In the beginning of the video we said, microchips are the most important thing in the world right now. But if you look at the countries that manufacture these microchips, you'll see that it's only a few small countries that do it. And the most important one is Taiwan. Why don't other companies create these? The highest importer of microchips is the US and China. So why don't they manufacture chips themselves? If you look at it, these two countries barely create microchips that doesn't even come close to the amount they import. Experts believe that the most powerful companies in the world are not computer companies, are not software companies, and it's not space companies. The most powerful companies in the world in the future are semiconductor or microchip companies. Just like we said, the biggest companies that create microchips in the world are in Taiwan, a very small island that's not in a safe place, and it's always being threatened. China says, since Taiwan is a part of China, I'm gonna need this place back. Taiwan is not really well known around the world as well, and a lot of people mistake it for Thailand. If you didn't already know, Taiwan is technically under China, and it's called the Republic of China. And its flag is the old flag of China before it turned into a communist country. So why are we telling you the history of China and Taiwan? So we can get to know Taiwan and the most important country that creates microchip in the whole world. Taiwan has no power compared to China, and if the US wasn't helping them out, China would take over this island in one day. But obviously they don't want to do that either, because they know Taiwan is very important for their business. First of all, because of the microchip it produces. And second of all, it's because of the strategic location it's located in. And the US doesn't want this location and this island to be in Chinese hands. Even though China is not friends with Taiwan, but they don't want anything to happen to the nation because they're very dependent on the microchip they produce. There are a lot of different nations that create microchips around the world, like South Korea, India, and Pakistan. But highly advanced microchips that need to be in proper machines are only created in Taiwan. Not all of them, but Taiwan creates 65% of the microchips in the whole world. But if you want to look at advanced microchips, Taiwan creates 90% of them. The most advanced computers in the world, the most advanced robots in the world, the most advanced vehicles on Earth, most advanced equipment in the world. All these need chips from Taiwan. But the chip you find in your washing machine could be created in India or Pakistan. Just like we said, 90% of the advanced chips in the world are created in Taiwan. But who creates the remaining 10%? The 10% belongs to the US and Japan, and Europe has some work to do to catch up to these guys. Like the Porsche Taycan is one of the most advanced European vehicles, and this car cannot be built if its chip does not come from Taiwan. But why was this advanced industry built in Taiwan? We first have to see where was the microchip originally created. Microchips was created in a place that just because of the material it used, it's called Silicon Valley. For decades, the best microchips were created in Silicon Valley, California, and because of its location, the price of manufacturing it was getting higher and higher. Silicon Valley companies, with the help of the US government, they got a pass to relocate these machines to somewhere else, and that's Taiwan. And it was all because of the wages are much less, but they can do the same quality of work. Another reason that microchips are extremely expensive is that they take a long time to produce, and the engineers that work on them have to be on shift for hours on end. In Silicon Valley, they weren't producing microchips, but they were working on the technology to make them better and better, and then provide Taiwan with the technology they created. The Americans created the microchip and relocated to Taiwan, but now they're extremely worried, and you could say they're regretting the location they chose, because it's in a very small island next to another superpower called China, and it's always threatening them. But right now, the Americans are forced to help Taiwan so they can stay strong against China, so the microchip industry does not get hurt. After COVID-19 hit, the microchip industry took a huge hit, and the amount of chips being built got dropped heavily. Just this alone caused all the car manufacturers to take a huge hit, and it cut their production to 1/3. Just look how powerful a certain company is in Taiwan, that by not producing a chip, the biggest companies around the world that build cars will take a huge hit because of it. After this happened, people realized that they need to create more facilities that build these microchips. They chose the state of Ohio to build another facility that could manufacture advanced microchips. Just like building the chips itself, creating an industry for it is much harder, and the microchip industry in Ohio is supposed to open in the year 2025. On the other side of the pond in Europe, Intel, which you probably should know, is trying to build another factory in Germany to create microchips, and this one should be opened in the year 2027. The Europeans felt like they're being left behind, so they started to talk about it. They put all their money together and came up with $49 billion so they can create a factory in France for microchips, but it will take around 1 decade to finish. Producing something in this world is much different from before. You just can't have an assembly line like the Ford Model T where everything is made in-house. Nowadays, factories don't work like that, and they don't make everything in one spot. When you produce something, different parts of that product comes from everywhere, and it's not like before where you produce something, everything comes from that factory or even that same country. Like for example, look at this Mercedes. The seat belts come from Japan. The microchips come from Taiwan. The seats come from China. The engine is made in Germany. The brakes are made in Italy, but when you look at this car and see the Mercedes badge, you think it's a German car. It is a German car because it was put together in Germany, but it took a lot of different countries for this thing to be finished. This goes the same for other factories as well. There's not a thing today where you can produce just with the help of one factory. World industry is so dependent on one another that a factory cannot work with one factory. Intel, the company that created one of the first microchip, put their production aside, and they only worked on technology to make these microchips smaller and smaller. But nowadays, it decided to create another factory so they can start up production once again. Just like we said before, to make a factory that produces microchips, you have to invest a whole lot of money. The equipment you need to produce this product is extremely expensive, and putting all these machines in one factory will cost a pretty penny. In a factory that microchips are being manufactured, it's kind of like the operating room, but 10 times worse, because not one piece of dust could be in this factory, and it could mess up the wafers. Another thing that makes manufacturing microchips complicated around the world is that it's a multi-step process, and it's no simple task. And you basically can't insert a wafer and wait for it to finish. You have to keep changing the machines. Western countries, especially the US, is worried that China will take over Taiwan, and after that, they will have control over the technology of modern advanced microchips. What happened after COVID and the shortage of microchip basically created a new race. A race for who creates the most advanced microchips. And the winner right now is Taiwan. The #1 producer of advanced microchip is Taiwan still. There is a lot of talk about creating different factories around the world for microchip. But creating a factory like this is no easy job. It needs a lot of time and a lot of money. Right now, the participants in this microchip race is the US, China, South Korea, Japan, and Europe. And they're basically trying to win it all. Either way, right now, the whole world is dependent on the technology that Silicon Valley created and the factories in Taiwan.